welcome to the Earth Feels podcast.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Christine.
Welcome to Earth Feels, the podcast for people feeling overwhelmed by the endlessly gloomy climate news.
Where every week we have soul-based conversations about climate change and explore the idea that climate change may be happening for us as much as it is happening to us.
If you are ready to shift your focus and secure the future for our kids and our grandkids, then this is the podcast for you.
And yes, we do know how to spell.
So today's question, does your closet reflect your climate concern? I think we can all say that there's already enough stuff in the world without needing to make more. And can we use what already exists? Because that would make far more sense. It's better for the environment. It reduces emissions, saves resources, reduces waste, and it saves on all that new packaging too. So what does it look like to step off the consumer treadmill? There's a few statistics that I wanted to talk about in the clothing industry, because the textile industry now accounts for 1.2 billion tons of the world's greenhouse gas emissions annually.
Wow, that's a lot.
And that's more than international aviation and shipping combined.
Whoa.
So the clothing industry is responsible for 8% of carbon emissions. Making one pair of jeans produces the same amount of carbon emissions as driving a car for 69 miles. And that stat came from Levi Strauss. So,
wow. What if you're driving the car in jeans?
Smart ass. Okay. And then globally, 80% of discarded textiles are doomed for landfill or incineration. Only 20% are actually reused or recycled. And then the non-biodegradable fabric that sits in a landfill for like 200 years, as it decomposes, it emits methane, right? And methane is more potent than carbon.
So non-biodegradable, that would be, I guess cotton wouldn't fall under that.
No, it would be like any kind of polyester, right?
So including, enlighten me. I'm a quilter, so I use cottons, but not anything else in my fabric buying. But spandex. But isn't it? I'm even wondering what I'm wearing. Like, what about our the vests that we're wearing when our down vests for that first picture that we had up? That was probably some form of polyester. It wasn't cotton, right?
Right.
So it's everywhere.
The down inside would have been
biodegradable.
Biodegradable, yeah. But the outside, any kind of polyester fabric, spandex. I wonder even. So you pull.
I don't wear a lot of spandex, but.
You had a lot of leggings on. Were they all cotton?
Oh, that's true, but most of those are cotton, and now I have to check. I wish, yeah. I've got sweatpants on right now, so I'm not going to check. I'm assuming that they're mostly cotton, but if they have any stretch in them, do they have?
They've got some spandex. If they've got some
wow,
stretch in them.
So maybe I wear spandex every day.
Well, most fabrics, I think they've incorporated a little spandex just because it makes them keep their shape better. It's like memory yarn,
right?
That's what they call it.
So in other words, we're all wearing biodegradable clothes. Okay.
The equivalent of one garbage truck of textiles is landfilled or incinerated every second.
Oh.
108 million tons of non-renewable resources are used every year to produce clothing. 108 million tons of non-renewable resources are used each year to produce clothing. 2,700 liters of water are needed to make one cotton shirt. So that's to grow the cotton, to wash the cotton, to dye the cotton. 2,700 liters to make one shirt.
All right. So are we advocating
Naked?
people, join a nudist colony? A little bit hard up here in the north, I just want to say. What are our options then, Rose?
Well, so we're talking about the one really interesting thing that I think that's happening is as we're buying, well, let me just talk about this a little bit more. We're buying twice as much clothing, but we're wearing it half as long. So people really want
Ooh,
to move through their things faster. The
wow.
average number of items in a consumer's closet is declining, and so that was really what was
Hmm.
happening with fast fashion. Forever 21, they just actually declared bankruptcy. By the way, they're closing like 40 of their stores, and
Is this a good thing?
well, I think it is in that they have cheap stuff that's made you wear it 3 or 4 times and then the seams give out and then you just throw it away.
Wow.
That's kind of, it's really trendy type things, not
Mm-hmm.
the in it for the long haul.
Mm.
But if you can double the life of your clothing from 1 year to 2 years, you would help reduce emissions statistically by as much as 24%. So can we buy less and keep it longer? And
And should
then
we be buying them used, pre-owned
pre-owned.
clothes?
So that's the exciting new trend. It is buying secondhand. It's easy, it's impactful, and it reduces the energy intensive new clothes and keeps more items out of the
Mm-hmm.
landfill. So you can, and it's cool because it's one of a kind. You're
Mm-hmm.
recycling it, you're upcycling it. It's already pre-loved,
Mm-hmm.
like the Velveteen Rabbit, right?
Yeah.
And ready to be loved again. So there, and it's taking off like gangbusters. So there's a number of, I've been an eBay addict for a number of years. I had 2 years. I had an eBay store that I
Hmm.
sold, that I did pretty well, that I sold jewelry and accessories on. Um, but retail resale sales have grown 21 times faster than retail apparel overall in the last 3
Mm.
years.
On eBay specifically.
Not, no, just in general,
Okay.
resale in general. So there's a new, well, it's new to me, website called ThreadUp, and
Okay.
they've just really taken. They will send you an envelope, and they call it your cleanout kit. Comes to your house, and you put whatever you want in it. You send it to them.
Okay.
They take the pictures. They put everything up on the website. I think they're putting up 30,000 new items a day.
Whoa.
So they must have this huge warehouse. I don't know where it's out of,
Yeah.
but the idea is that 56 million women bought secondhand clothes in 2018. That was up from 44 million in 2017. So
Huh.
there's this idea that consumers are becoming more wanting to become more sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy something and you wear it a couple of times, and you, rather than let it sit in your closet, you can send it back, or you can send it to a company that will sell it for you, or you can donate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of like a treasure hunt.
Mm-hmm.
It makes shopping like a treasure hunt.
Wow. Well, I have to say, I guess for once in my life, I was ahead of the
Ahead of
trend.
the curve.
Yeah, because I think I was telling you this when I was visiting you in Cape Cod, that we had a conversation about buying used clothes. And my mother, so when I was a teenager, she volunteered at the thrift store that was run by the Women's Auxiliary for this private school that we attended, and to raise money for the school. And so that's when she started bringing stuff home, and she would bring it home, a whole box full. We'd get to try on the clothes, and then whatever we didn't want, she could bring back. So we didn't have, like,
Oh,
yeah. How cool is that?
yeah.
And so, I've been buying clothes since I was a teenager, which we know is a couple of decades ago. But I have to say it's gotten easier, because some of the thrift stores were kind of grubby
Oh,
and
yeah. They all used to have
cramped.
that. old kind of moldy
Yeah.
grandma basement kind of smell to them. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And now, I mean, Value Village, or if you
Mm.
want to make it sound very chic and trendy, you could say Value Village with the French twist.
My girlfriend that I was traveling with, she had all these cute outfits. And I'm like, I like that shirt. I want that. Give me that. And she's like,
Mhm.
Value Village, $5. I'm like, what? Yep, $5 for this. I mean, she's pulling stuff out of her suitcase. $5 for this, $5 for this.
Yeah,
It was all name brand stuff. She lives in an area that's a little affluent. People
yeah,
don't want their stuff. They want to trade it in. So
yeah.
they donate it. And then she goes in and reaps the rewards. I'm like, I might have to come to Seattle just to go to Value Village.
Well, they're all over the place, aren't they? At least in Canada. Are they not in the US?
They are. I actually, in doing the research, I got online to see where
Yes.
the closest one was to me, and there's one here in Plymouth. It's not. It's called something else. It's called Super Savers or something in
Oh,
this area of the country. But I'm
oh,
gonna go check it out because I mean, if they have some good stuff, yeah. And I have a
yeah,
closet, and I'm one of those people that I keep my clothing forever.
yeah.
Um, even stuff that doesn't fit me anymore, which isn't too smart. Because I think I'm going to fit back into it someday. But yeah, no, I've got a lot of stuff that I want to get
So
rid of, and so
you are a good example for the rest of us. You hang on to your clothes for a long time.
yes, I do. Yes, I do. But that doesn't mean I'm wearing it. It means it's hanging in my closet.
Okay, we have an action step related to that, right?
Okay.
So,
Yes, we do. Yeah. Well, so if you think about, so that's just the garment industry, right? So the garment industry is probably, well, as we've said, it's some of the biggest numbers in terms of waste and stuff going into the landfill. But think about all the other kinds of things that you can buy used. And that kind of brings me to your story, Christine, about Habitat for Humanity's Restore.
that's true. Well, my story, but really only reflected glory because it was my brother, Rick Penner, who came up with the idea of the Restore and established the very first Habitat Restore in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
See, 6 degrees of separation. I'm
There,
like related to him.
yes, exactly. Yes. Well, you have touched me, so you can bask in some of that reflected glory. But you know what? We could even interview him someday because I don't remember what made him think about doing it, but I do remember the conversation that we had around my mom's kitchen table back in now sometime in the early 90s, I believe.
Mm.
And he had thought of this idea. He was doing economics, a Bachelor of Economics, and was very interested in sustainability, was involved in recycling in the city we were living in Winnipeg, and came up with this idea. And yes, it was the very first Restore. And now, I mean, they're all over. When I travel across Canada or the US, I see them everywhere. And I always feel a little bit of pride when I see it. Sometimes I take a picture of them, the sign, and send it to him and tell him where I've seen it. Because
Okay, so I used to. So for 2 years, I volunteered at Habitat here on Cape Cod, and they opened locally. They opened a store right here in town, which I was like so thrilled. So I'll have to send you some pictures of the things that I have bought
yes,
at the Restore, because our Restore here on Cape Cod, we have a lot of people who buy homes that are already furnished, and the people who are moving out, either they're elderly and they don't want to take their stuff with them, or they're downsizing their vacation homes, whatever. And so the new people come in anyway, and they want their own sense of style. So we would get whole housefuls of stuff donated, and
yeah,
incredible stuff.
right. So it's expanded because
That
when it started, it was just building materials.
Mhm,
So
mhm. I think it varies
doors.
from place to place, because I looked, because of my volunteer experience here, I looked when I was out in California last winter,
Mhm.
and the one in Berkeley and the one in, there was two separate ones in San Diego I went to. It was more, it was more building materials,
Right.
more
Doors,
like
windows, yeah.
sinks, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But here, this particular one that here in Falmouth is incredible for furniture. I mean,
Wow.
it's like going into, it's all set up in little vignettes. Peter, the store manager here, has a really good eye, and
Yeah.
there's all kinds of ceiling fixtures, ceiling fans, and different kinds of chandeliers, and everything. I loved volunteering there because everybody that was there that came into the store was so happy. They were either finding a deal, or they were getting rid of stuff that they'd been sitting around forever. So everybody that came in there was like, this place is so cool.
Wow. I guess it would be too big a carbon footprint for me to drive down there from BC, where I am right now, where I'm going to be for the next couple of months, because we are actually looking to furnish our place here. But I guess I'll have to look a little closer to home. But it sounds like Cape Cod would be the place to go to get some really good stuff.
Some really good furniture anyway. But I would think that other places, is there a Restore in Victoria?
Yep, there is, and they have furniture. And in fact, some of the pieces surrounding me right now in this quite empty room were from the Restore. Anyways, I agree. So we've talked about clothes, we've talked about the Restore, where you can recycle building materials and furniture if you're lucky. Is there any other kind of reuse that we want to touch on?
Well, I think any kind of, secondhand stores, I think, also epitomize shopping locally. So they're usually independent, and they're local, versus if you give them to if you give your stuff to Goodwill. I read an article today that said California Goodwill spends $7 million just in dumping stuff. So when you're ready to get rid of your things, give them to a consignment store, or just a thrift store nearby that will recycle them locally, and then that money goes back into the economy locally, keeps the money in the economy. And there's all kinds of things. I mean, jewelry is incredible markup. If you can find stuff even at a pawn shop, all that stuff is secondhand, right?
And there are some people who buy jewelry at thrift stores and stuff and repurpose it. You can get some really funky jewelry that way, which would count as secondhand, even though it's been repurposed.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and has an artistic value to it.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're supporting local artists.
Well, and books. I mean, not for authors who are coming out with a new book, but how many libraries have huge library sales where all that stuff is being recirculated?
So
tools,
exercise
equipment. I mean, how many people buy exercise equipment, myself included? And you have the best of intentions, and then you just don't. It kind of wears, So why buy it brand new if you can't?
Good point. I'll tell you what I do with books, though, because I do love books. I have a lot of bookshelves. But when I buy secondhand books, either at the library or at a thrift store, I confess I actually stick them in the freezer for 3 days in case because bed bugs survive in books. So that's my rule. Stick them in the freezer for, what is that, 72 hours at least. I mean, sometimes my husband will open the freezer and go, what the heck? It's just books and no food. They're just on top of the food. But if I've had a good run at the thrift store.
I know, like when my kids were very little, we all moved into the neighborhood at the same time. So we all had our kids around the same time, within, somebody was born in June, and then there was somebody else born the next January, that kind of thing. And what we did was, when your kids outgrew the 6-month stuff, we just passed it to the next mom who had a kid that was 6 months old. And eventually, when you got back to when it would all come around again. Of course, some of that stuff had all stains and stuff.
Yes.
But it was getting used, because otherwise, the kids outgrow stuff before they wear it out.
That's brilliant. And I know that in my community that their moms have a Facebook group, young moms have a Facebook group where they do exactly that. They just swap stuff. and round and around, and that's brilliant, and it's fun to see that when it's happening. And if you haven't connected in your community, and you have young kids, I would highly recommend
kids clothing swaps, and then baby gear too, same thing. Those the little baby swing that you had in your doorway, and the jumpy thing, and all those little tykes things that are cost an arm and a leg. I mean, garage sales.
Yeah,
garage sales for all
that's
that kind
true.
of stuff.
Although in our part of the world, garage sales, it's not the season for garage sales, but
well, yeah, depends on where you live, but
yes.
yeah.
So that's I
think
just think
there's a big, I mean, Craigslist. That's how Craigslist got started. I think it's just
Kijiji, I guess, as well. And for me, maybe because of my, I don't want to say cheap Mennonite roots.
I thought you were going to say elitism. You want to wear somebody else's used things. I had a friend who was like,
oh yeah,
the first couple times she went with me to a used store, she was like, I can't do this. And I'm like, really? And she's like, no. But now she's like totally into it. I just give her such a hard time about it.
So you encouraged her, and that's funny because that has happened with my daughters who were brought up, with secondhand clothes, and it's just what we did. And it's not just about the economics, although it's always nice to get a really nice designer piece for almost nothing. I know, like
I mean, that just gets my blood running.
Oh, I got a really funky pair of silk pants, designer silk pants. That, of course, my daughters went, "Oh, you're really going to wear those, Mom?" Because they were flowered. They weren't, but I wore them. I rocked them, and they were, $3 or something.
Yeah.
At Value Village. But I know that my daughter's boyfriend has been positively influenced by her, and he would never ever have considered wearing used pants before, but he now will with pride tell you how little he paid for the really nice pants that he's wearing. So it's interesting how you can be influenced by the people around you, right?
There's all sorts of reasons. I mean, when your kids are little, you're trying to stretch the dollars farther, but it's also, how much waste goes into it. But if you're buying an outfit that you're gonna wear to a wedding, why not look at ThredUp or eBay? I have kind of an addiction to beautiful nightgowns.
Yes,
I don't want to have, I could buy something at Old Navy or wherever that was, I would much rather have something that was beautifully made and will last a long time and makes me feel elegant sliding into my bed at night. And pay $20 or $30 for something that, that maybe was $150 to start out with. I dig a good deal. My friends call me NPR, never pay retail. I love a good deal.
Let's make a graphic with NPR.
Never pay retail.
Yeah. Love it. And you have gotten some really good deals on some beautiful nightgowns on eBay, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So I have one. Go in and search by designer. Like you have your stuff that you like the way it fits and you know how it fits. And then every once in a while I get a dud, but it's just the name of the game.
Because can you return them if you buy them on eBay?
Usually, there are some vendors that will say no returns.
Okay. But it's
so then you just have to be more. Yeah. So you just have to be more conscious of that. Like, do you really want it enough that?
Right.
That if it doesn't work for you, but then you just donate it or you try to sell it yourself, whatever.
Yes. So are you going to post a picture of one of your favorite nightgowns that you got on eBay to inspire people?
I can do that.
That'd be fun.
I don't know that I'll be in it, but I'll post a picture.
You
of
can
it.
you can post it however you like.
Okay.
But
I'll do that. Yeah. Okay.
uh, okay, fun. Well, I was going to say as well, speaking of fast fashion, at some point in the next month or two, we're going to talk to Rory, who's on Instagram as Mr. Fabulous
Fabulous.
Designs, who's a young man who's a fashion designer who's just finished design school. And I happened to meet him when I was traveling in Southern Ontario, and he's so excited about the possibilities for the fashion industry to become much more sustainable. So that is a glimpse of coming attractions. So do we have some good news this week?
We have some great news this
Yay.
week. 2 giant coal plants in the United States have closed this month.
Wow. That's wonderful.
The Arizona's Navajo Generating Station emitted 20 million metric tons of carbon dioxide last year, the equivalent to 3.3 million cars, and it's gone.
Wow.
And the
Great.
second is Pennsylvania's Bruce Manson unit. The plant's bankrupt owner began shutting down on November 7th, almost 2 years ahead of schedule. And that was the state of Pennsylvania's largest coal-fired plant, and it had operated for 40 years.
Wow. Despite your president's
bring it back clean coal.
Yeah.
So my heart goes out to those people that are not employed, but that were employed there and no longer have their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they were good paying jobs, and they probably had been in those areas, probably gone on for generations, where the miners went down into the earth, and just a horrendous way to make your living. But that's why we need a new Green Deal. We need to be able to retrain these people and let them have an opportunity in cleaner energy.
Exactly. People want jobs. They want to be able to put a roof over their head and food on their table, and they don't love coal mining jobs. They love the fact that they're getting a regular paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you're absolutely right. The new Green Deal is all about that. And I believe, and we're going to post the exact stat, but in Canada, there are more jobs in green energy, renewable energy, than there are in the oil sands, in the fossil fuel industry, which has a huge lobbying voice, but the tide is turning. And so, yes, we celebrate the fact that those coal plant emissions aren't going into the air, but I think it's important to do what you just did, which is to recognize that people may be hurting because of it, and it's just time for a different kind of economy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, action step: take a look through your closet and donate what you haven't worn to the local clothing bank.
And Rose is going to do this too.
I am too. I have downsized quite a bit, but I'm still working at it. But especially this time of year, boots and coats and gloves, scarves, sweaters. There's a lot of people that are going without.
Mm-hmm. And there might even be charities in your community that collect those kind of warm weather items for people who
cold weather items. Yeah.
Sorry,
cold weather.
Cold.
Yep.
Those warm things for cold weather.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's one way they're going to be used. And just to say, I'm sure none of our readers or listeners would do this, but you do want to make sure that what you give away is in reasonable condition. It's
and clean. Wash it before
Yeah.
you donate it. Yeah. Exactly. So,
So
do you have a sanity tip for us?
I have a sanity tip. Well, I've I've been busy the last month. I'm finally landed somewhere for the next couple of months on the West Coast. I'm not in Northern Ontario. But part of my journey for the last month, as I traveled around different places in Canada and the US, was about listening to my intuition. That's one of the reasons why I made the trek that I did. And so I thought it would be fun for a sanity tip today to encourage people to listen to and to actually trust your intuition. I think everybody has intuition, but if you stop listening to it, which it's a skill that none of us was encouraged to develop. In fact, we were usually told not to listen to our hunches, and when something didn't feel good in our gut. So the way you can start listening more to your intuition is, and I know we've said this before, is to take at least 5 minutes a day to shut the door, shut out other noises, turn off the TV or the podcast, even us, and just spend some time listening to what's going on inside. Because Rose and I will both tell you, wow, does life get so much more interesting when you do that.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
You can't make this stuff up. The everything you need to know is, inside of you already. Okay. Thanks for listening. That's this week's episode of Earth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use Song for the Ocean. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me. You see, your mother, she has been suffering, and the truth is told beneath the sea.